Welcome back to the channel. My name's Nate and I'm here with Matt. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy this channel. We're going to get talking about Michigan and Ohio State. We're going to talk about the rankings, the playoff rankings that came on Tuesday, and we're also going to give a preview of the games coming up this weekend, which are really both pretty big. I think Michigan's is a little bit bigger, but I know there's some bad blood going on still to this day with Purdue and Ohio State, which is a little strange. I think Purdue still has a winning record. I think they've got more wins over Ohio State than Michigan probably does in the last 17 years. So what do you think about the rankings that just came out, Matt?
Well, it seems like a lot of people had problems with Michigan being over Michigan State. And while I don't agree with Michigan being over Michigan State, I think the bigger issue is that it's just not consistent with the way that they're doing the rest of the rankings. So if you're going to count head to head as like a tiebreaker if all things are equal, that's one thing, but then make that consistent throughout your rankings. So you have Oregon is ahead of Ohio State, even though things are not equal. Like our resume is way better than theirs week to week. And if it was the same, and then they have the head to head over us, then they should be ranked ahead of us. If that's how they're going to do things. But it doesn't make sense that they're going to rank Oregon ahead of Ohio State, but then the head to head last week, not just the first game of the year or second game of the year with Ohio State and Oregon. So Michigan, lost a week ago to Michigan State, and regardless of whether they should have won and just blew it at the end on kind of fluky fumbles, they still lost it, and that still has to count. But it doesn't seem like the playoff committee is being consistent there. I didn't really care. I just didn't agree with how that was done, but I don't really care that much because basically whoever wins out between Michigan State and Ohio State, whoever runs the gauntlet, if any of them do, will make it to the playoff. So the bigger issue I had was with Auburn again. So Auburn is 6-3, just like Penn State. Auburn is somehow ranked 17th, even though they only went down 4 spots, and they lost to Penn State. And Wisconsin, who's right below them at 18, also lost to Penn State, and they have the same record, but yet both of them are ranked 17 and 18. Penn State's still unranked. So maybe after they beat Michigan this week, they'll finally get ranked.
We'll get into those games coming up, but I'm kind of scared. It's less than 24 hours away, that Penn State Michigan game. So yeah, for sure. And I agree with you. I think that when you look at Wisconsin and Auburn and they're both ahead of Penn State with the same record, it's a little strange. It's like the college football playoff committee is almost like they can't look back in time at all. Like their attention span is literally 1 week and that's it. And one of my complaints about the college football playoff, which is, I know everyone has complaints, right? But it seems like they are tailoring and making decisions about the rankings. They're trying to tailor it to the way they want it to end up. Like putting Alabama number 2 in the very first one over Michigan State, who hadn't lost a game. You can tell that they're just trying to set up Georgia and Alabama for that number 1 and number 2. And they're already putting them at number 2 and making it so that if Alabama does lose, they don't drop them very far. It's like, hey, they're at number 2. They can just go back to number 4 and still make the playoffs with 2 losses. So I feel like the playoff committee, granted, Alabama deserves a lot of credit. They have a lot of success. We all know they're super talented, probably the most talented in the U.S. But it's just like they're stacking the deck and they're trying to make the playoff happen. Like they're trying to make it happen before it actually happens. So yeah, I'm a little annoyed to say the least with the rankings. And with Michigan and Michigan State, Michigan being ranked higher than Michigan State literally just a week after. Now granted, Michigan State lost to who? Indiana, was it? And kind of badly.
Purdue.
Kind of bad. Indiana, Purdue. Michigan beat Indiana last week. But yeah, I drink the Kool-Aid and all. Look at that. Look at this. Like all this stuff back here. But there's no way I'm thinking that Michigan State should be ranked 1 spot behind Michigan after they just beat them with the same record. I mean, Kenneth Walker had 5 touchdowns and 200 yards. They came back.
Game.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of that, how many pieces of flair do I have? Just take a minute. Let's take a little break.
You're trying to do like an Office Space commercial here. Jennifer Aniston would be proud of your flair.
I mean, just like let's compare the amounts of flair that I have compared to the amounts of flair you have for your team. Only someone who loses as much as Michigan can feel this emotional about.
You're trying to overcompensate for your team's lack of winning.
Yes,
I think
exactly. And then yours.
Yeah, and one of the things that I want to get back to your Alabama comment. So Alabama has a lot of good players, but when was the last time that you could think of that Alabama had a running game as bad as their running game is now? How many years would you have to go back? I mean, they ran for like 30 yards or something against LSU.
Yeah, I mean they're playing modern college football now. They're not the running team that they used to be with like Najee Harris. They're just not. I mean, well, they sort of are. I mean, they were great last year, but they're a passing team now. Like,
but their offensive line stinks this year. They can't pass protect or run block. And yet we're supposed to believe that they're a number 2 team. I don't think so.
Well, it's going to get real terrible if Alabama beats Georgia. Real terrible, because Georgia's not going to drop out of the top 4, and Alabama will go to number 1. And then you've got the rest of the top 10 trying to fit in and make a case for those other 2 spots.
Yeah. So, luckily, I just don't think that their offensive line is just going to get absolutely annihilated by Georgia's front. So I don't even entertain that as even a possibility.
Yeah.
I just don't see it.
Interesting. Well,
that would be a complete disaster though, if it did happen. But I just don't. I think that's what the committee's trying to set up. That's why they're putting all these, all these teams like Auburn really high. They're trying to, prop up Alabama for when they beat Auburn. So maybe Auburn will still be ranked with 4 losses.
Oh yeah. They want number 1 versus number 2, Georgia, Alabama. They want that matchup, and they're going to get it, because I don't think Georgia and Alabama even play anyone who's going to come close to beating them until that game happens, right? I can't think of one. And I was responding to a comment today on our channel to someone who was nice enough to comment. It was awesome. But I caught myself saying, when Ohio State gets to the playoffs, that was what I just naturally typed that. And I didn't even take into consideration that Michigan could beat them. I mean, that's kind of where this has kind of gone, as far as where my mindset has gone in that rivalry. But so I was saying that, I said when Ohio State gets to the playoffs, but they're going to be there. Like, they're already number 4. They're already being set up. And I don't think that the playoff committee is going to have any room for Cincinnati. And Oregon is number 3 right now. I could see them losing. They're really making. They really don't like Oklahoma, but Oklahoma would totally get in there if they're undefeated. I think they would jump Oregon.
Well, see, I mean, obviously the tricky part is going to be is if Oregon wins out, Ohio State wins out, Cincinnati wins out, Oklahoma wins out. It'd be really interesting if like Alabama loses to Auburn and then Texas A&M wins the West and beats Georgia. Then you have a 2-loss Alabama that didn't win their conference, a 2-loss A&M team that does win the SEC, and then a 1-loss Georgia team. So then you're definitely getting A&M and Georgia in. And then Alabama with 2 losses will still probably try to sneak them in, even though they actually might not at that point, because they, getting 3 in would be a little insane. But the real issue is, I mean, I don't think it's going to come down to it, because I think Oregon is most likely going to lose again, even though their schedule isn't that hard the rest of the way. They're just not playing as well. So I think actually out of all the other top teams, I think they have the best chance of going undefeated the rest of the way. even though they're not playing well enough to necessarily do it. But Oklahoma and Ohio State have the hardest road left. And we had to play Purdue, Michigan State, Michigan, and probably Wisconsin. So, I mean, those are all games that we could lose. Whereas, I think Oklahoma has to play Baylor this week, and then Oklahoma State, and then Oklahoma State again in the championship game. So they could easily lose. I mean, they're almost lost to Kansas, so they could lose any of those games. Yeah. But if they did somehow win, and everyone thinks that Caleb Williams is, this great quarterback, which he's not yet. I mean, he's going to probably win the Heisman in a year or two, but not this year. And yeah, it'll be interesting if Oklahoma can figure something out. I don't think they're going to make it, and I don't think Oregon's going to make it. I'm not even sure Ohio State's going to make it. If we got to figure our running game out, that's really like the biggest problem with us the last couple of weeks is they've been doing some different things on defense against us to stop our running game, and we haven't been adjusting well, or we've been taking too long to adjust to it. So that's why we're still getting a lot of yards. So we're getting in the red zone and not running that much because our run blocking has been getting shut down. So hopefully our linemen can get things figured out and they can start running again. But I guess it's also hard when you have 4 tackles playing and no guards. So that's good for pass protection. Yeah. So we have 4 tackles and no guards, and that's why it's hurting the run game a little bit too.
Interesting. I didn't really notice that the run game was hurting until Nebraska last week. I watched that
against Penn State too.
And Penn State, I felt like, yeah, that's true, but I felt like Penn State, they've got a good run defense, so they're kind of known for that. Yeah, they do. And
we were able to run a little bit at the end of the Penn State game, so our total numbers were a little more respectable. But like most of that game, we couldn't run. And then Nebraska, we couldn't run at all until like the end of the fourth quarter. So there was,
good teams
get that figured out.
Good teams usually run in the fourth quarter, though. So, but I wanted to get back to what you were saying about Oklahoma, and I'm looking at their schedule right now. And tomorrow at noon they play Baylor, and Baylor's ranked 18, and they're a pretty good team. So, I mean, Oklahoma could get knocked out tomorrow at noon.
Oh yeah,
they really could. I mean,
I think,
and then that would end it. They'd be done at that point. I mean, I don't think they'd be getting in. And I'm trying to look at some other some other games that are just, kind of that would affect that playoff or the top 10. I mean, Michigan's playing Penn State, obviously. That's Michigan's number 9, Penn State's 23.
A lot of people think that Tennessee has a chance against Georgia because Tennessee has a new quarterback, and since they had their new quarterback in, their offense has actually been really, really good. Problem is their defense is still kind of a hot mess. So
that would be pretty funny.
Yeah, but even if Georgia loses that game, it's not going to matter. I mean, they're still going to make the playoffs, so I don't even know.
Well, they would have to beat Alabama to still make the playoffs. They're not getting in with 2 losses. With losses at the end of the season like that.
Yeah. But it's still like they still have 1 mulligan left.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not seeing really Texas A&M versus Mississippi. And neither one of those teams are really they're not going to threaten. That's it.
Yeah. So basically it's just, is Oregon going to beat Washington State? Is Ohio State going to beat Purdue?
They'll beat Washington State.
Penn State going to sneak a win against Michigan? You guys have gone back and forth on that rivalry quite a bit. That's going to be a low scoring, ugly game, I bet.
So let's jump to the game this weekend. Nice segue there, like Michigan and Penn State. So what are your outsider thoughts on that? Like just outside looking in, no emotions really, just kind of looking at it from a non-Michigan, non-Penn State fan. Like what do you see happening in that game?
I think that somehow Clifford, when he's healthy, still manages to do a really good job, even though his offensive line is complete trash and his running back is trash. So they have no running game. Their offensive line can't pass protect. But before he got injured against Iowa, they were looking like one of the hottest teams in the country. So at times against us, he was looking really good when he was healthy, until the end when he threw a pick towards the end of the game. But other than that, he's like a really high risk, high reward type of a quarterback, and obviously has one of the best receivers in the country too. It's just the offensive line against, our defensive line was really clicking, and by the time we played them, we were really, really putting a lot of pressure on him. And your defensive line, I mean, you guys have two better defensive ends. I think our line overall is better, but your ends are better, and their weakness is their tackles. So I think that you're probably going to get at least 5 or 6 sacks against him, most likely. And
Yeah.
I think he's but I also at the same time, I don't know if you're going to be able to run that well against him. And that's like your only offense when you're not playing Michigan State is running. And you're without your top running back. So it's you only have one elite running back now. So can you establish a run against a really good run defense? And I'm thinking maybe a little bit, but I think really the difference is probably just going to be, I have more faith that Clifford is going to throw interceptions. And I don't think that Michigan is going to throw enough to make those negative plays that Penn State will, because Penn State has their running game, they have to throw. And so because of that, and with a strong defensive end at Michigan, I think it's going to be problems, and he's probably going to throw 2 or 3 picks. And I think that'll be the difference.
I would love to see them throw picks. And Michigan has not done very good at getting interceptions. And I'm really afraid of Dotson. That dude, last week he had he broke some records or got really close to breaking some records against Maryland.
He's ridiculous.
Yeah, and so we're not stopping him. There's no way we're going to stop him. I mean, we might be able to slow him down, hopefully. But I'm really scared, like what you said, like getting pressure on the quarterback is going to be huge. And if we can't do it, then I think we're in trouble. They may not be able to run on us, but it might be like one of those things like against Michigan State. We did a great job against Michigan State's quarterback and their passing. Well, they still had some big plays in the passing game, but it was just like if Dotson turns into Kenneth Walker, like I had that type of game, then we're going to struggle for sure. And I don't have any faith that Michigan can run against a good opponent. They are probably most likely not going to be able to. Our top running back is out. Our freshman star running back is out. He hasn't played very much. The receiver that had that awesome game against Michigan State, he got dinged up in the last game. So we've got a lot.
I was going to ask you about that because I saw he didn't do anything. What happened to him?
He had a couple games, or he had a couple good catches, and that's it. They had kind of a basic game against Indiana. The quarterback did throw 2 touchdown passes to the tight end, to the backup tight end, which was in the red zone, which is actually a lot better than what they have been doing because their red zone offense is just awful. We're leading the nation in field goals in the red zone. But
well, at the rate we've been at going the last 2 weeks, we're trying to catch you. Like our field goal kicker's turning into our MVP lately. He hasn't missed a single kick all year though.
9-point wins. Do I have that right in my history? 9-point win with field goals against Penn State.
All these field goals.
The same thing against Nebraska.
Yeah, it's like Ted Nugent reincarnated here. Russell is just loving this new game plan that we have from Ryan Day.
Yeah, Jim Tressel.
The offensive guru is now the field goal guru.
One thing I noticed, I was not going to do any like scouting on Penn State versus Maryland. I refused to do it because that would just be painful. I don't hate myself enough to turn that game on and actually watch it. But I did watch a 3-minute highlight, the 3-minute highlights, and it showed that Maryland got into the red zone against Penn State like 4 or 5 times. They turned the ball over like 2 or 3 times in the red zone against Penn State. But Penn State let Maryland get into the red zone that many times. It's making me feel like if Michigan could actually do that and actually score a few touchdowns, then we might have a chance. But here's what the playoff committee did to really screw Michigan. They ranked Penn State after beating Maryland last week. And Michigan on the road against ranked opponents, Harbaugh has a terrible, terrible record. Like literally just by putting the 23 or whatever it is by Penn State right now.
They're not ranked.
maybe not in the college playoffs. Maybe they are. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are in the AP.
They're not ranked anywhere. They're not ranked anywhere.
What am I thinking?
Maybe it's AP. The coaches poll in the playoffs don't have them ranked.
Oh, yep, you're right. It's the AP. They've got them ranked 23.
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe I can ignore that, and maybe Michigan will win now because they're not ranked in the rankings that matter. That would make me happy.
I think Harbaugh will know deep down that they're ranked in one of the polls, and that'll be enough to get him.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And Harbaugh, he's not going to lose, or he's not going to get fired or leave because he loses to Ohio State. It's going to be because he can't beat the Penn States and the Michigan States. I mean, you can't even expect to beat Ohio State if you can't even beat Michigan State and Penn State. So I almost feel like this game might be like the game that either saves Harbaugh and has him come back next year, or not. And that's a lot to put on him. But I mean, he had this really good year compared to last year, but then you come and lose to your in-state rival, and you can't beat Penn State. Like it's just, and then you're probably going to lose to Ohio State. The only way then is you have to pull one out against Ohio State, which is probably not going to happen. I think Harbaugh might be done if this. We'll probably know if Harbaugh is not coming back by 4:00 tomorrow.
Who do you guys play after Penn State?
Maryland, I believe. I believe it's Maryland. I'm not going to look that up.
Okay. Well, that'll be an easy one. Okay. At least you guys have an easy game before you play us. We had to play Michigan State right beforehand.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that. Do we really just have 2 weeks? Do we just have 3 weeks left?
Yeah, that and the Big Ten championship.
Man, this has gone really fast.
Yeah, going back to the rankings real quick, that's the one thing I can maybe understand, like with putting Wisconsin ranked higher than Penn State, because it seems like the committee does sometimes put emphasis on teams that have a winning streak going.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so Wisconsin is they got a new starting running back. So at the beginning of the year when they lost to Michigan and they lost to Notre Dame, they lost to everybody. Then all of a sudden they threw in a new running back. Now all of a sudden they're amazing. They can't be stopped, and they've won 5 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And they look like Wisconsin normally looks. And then so now you have the number 1 ranked defense in the country and a very good running game that no one seems to be able to stop. And they still have that quarterback Graham Mertz is not very good yet, but
he's getting better though.
Yeah,
he's totally getting better.
So. Yeah, Wisconsin's definitely gonna be a tough out this year.
Yeah, for sure. You see, you're just assuming, oh yeah, we're gonna have to play Wisconsin once we get to the.
I didn't say us. I said they're gonna be a tough out for whoever makes it there. I don't know. Beating Purdue, Michigan State, and Michigan 3 in a row, it's gonna be really difficult.
Well, let's talk about Purdue. I know Ohio State kind of has a bit of a history with them. Purdue has just pulled a couple out of nowhere. And Holy Buckeye, you remember Holy Buckeye?
Yeah, I remember.
Where were you?
I think you were with me, weren't you?
We were definitely communicating. I don't know if we were together though.
I thought we were. I was with a bunch of people at a bar, and I fell out of my stool, and I fell on the floor. Literally fell on the floor. That was the craziest play I can ever remember watching. In any Ohio State game.
Remind me of the situation in that play, because I know it was like a very non-Tressel-like thing to do.
Oh yeah, so it was. I can almost remember the call. So it was like 4th and 1. The I-back is in front of the tailback. Is he going to hand off? Is he going to make it? No, he's going to pass it. It's Michael Jenkins, 4th and 1. Oh my God, holy Buckeye, he did it. And he threw like a 45-yard touchdown pass and somehow pulled out a victory. I mean, they just needed a first down. He originally was going to look too, like for, I think Hamby was the guy who was supposed to get the play, the tight end on a 10-yard pass, but he wasn't open. So then he just threw it deep for the touchdown.
So I do remember I remember watching that game and that play, and I was kind of like this, because I thought Ohio State was going to lose. I was thinking, okay, this could be over, and And then it was like, oh my gosh, and the most untrestle-like play call. It's almost like someone played that, like someone got mixed up with the play call. I wouldn't be half surprised at all.
Maybe Krenzel ignored the play call.
I doubt it. I think someone messed something up. He was like, oh, go deep. Okay. Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny about him? Like, so he was conservative a lot of times, but in big games or in big moments, he did make a lot of very risky plays. Like against you guys, he did that a lot too.
Interesting. So Purdue's taken down Iowa, beat them pretty bad, but I did notice that
Wisconsin whooped them.
The game after, they whooped them, and so now they took out Michigan State. So Purdue was obviously thinking they were pretty awesome at that point. Then got trounced by Wisconsin, and so they're in this kind of the same situation now. Where is the game? This is at Ohio State, right?
Yeah, it's a home game.
It's a home game. So yeah, I'm thinking, that could very well happen again. I mean, Purdue might, think they're pretty awesome again, and I don't think they'll be able to do it twice in a row.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. So like with the last time we lost him, the one in 2018 where we got crushed, and that cost us going to the playoffs. Our offense actually played really well for the majority of that game until we got to the red zone, and then that's where we were just making mistakes in the red zone. And so the passes were just a little bit off, and
turnovers.
That's why we lost that game. That plus, that's offensively why we lost the game, and we had enough offensively that we should have been able to go play for play with them, but in the red zone they just kept screwing up. And then defensively, of course, they had the receiver who just lit us up. And trying to think about that one, that was just ugly. But that was also a game. So we had a big win before that, and I was listening to some interviews from some of the players, and they were definitely still partying that next week and not really taking the game seriously because it's Purdue and they weren't supposed to be good. So that was definitely one of the letdown games, where it's a little different this time. So like we know, like Purdue, number one, is ranked this time. They've already had two major upsets, Iowa and Michigan State. So
yeah,
they're not taking anybody by surprise this time around, and we're not coming off of like a letdown or anything. Like we've had two games where we aren't playing that well offensively. So
very true.
like because of that, we should be able to really get things going offensively. So really the only question is how much is Purdue going to be able to attack the middle of our defense with the, our linebackers and one of our safeties that isn't very good.
Yeah,
so
it does seem like
defense they'll be able to get a lot of stuff going, but I think we have 2-3 really good corners that are going to be able to, keep Bell in check when they throw to him out wide. But it's just if he gets in the middle on linebackers and safeties, that's where he's going to get his damage.
Who was like, I'm trying to remember the name of the Purdue receiver that from 2018.
Rondell Moore.
Yes, he and David Bell are almost like Bell is almost reincarnated. Like they're like almost like the same receiver. Just really good. I don't know if Bell is as good, but I heard
that Bell doesn't have as freaky of athletic skills. He's just a really, really good receiver, but he's not like because Rondell Moore was freakishly athletic, and Bell is not quite to that level.
Yeah,
Moore, I'm pretty sure was a 5-star, and Bell is only like a high 4-star and doesn't quite have the measurables.
Yeah, maybe not. And I don't see them going into Columbus or Ohio State overlooking them. I don't know. I kind of sense that Ohio State's probably going to find their run game again because they're probably putting an emphasis on it. What's that?
You know what the spread is without looking?
Nope, I haven't looked.
Take a look. Take a guess.
Take a guess?
Yeah.
Buckeyes by 20.
Yeah, it's let's see, right now it is 21. Yeah.
21. I almost said 21.
Yeah, we were only favored by 15 against Rutgers.
Interesting. So they know something. Like they know something's happening. Yeah. I don't think there's any injuries for Purdue, but we know.
So we have a high. I mean, Purdue just beat Iowa and Michigan State, and yet we're 20-point favorites. We're higher favorites over them than we were against Penn State, Rutgers, Nebraska, like all these other teams. and we're a higher
Yeah,
there's a higher spread. Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me. And a lot of times I get shocked that, like I look at Vegas and I think, what is it that they're thinking? And a lot of times they're right, because I think they're just putting together the situations, like the way the Buckeyes are coming off the Nebraska game and the way Purdue is coming off of their win. They're probably just kind of churning that into their algorithm. Thinking, all right,
Yeah, that too.
Purdue's
I also think
not going to be able to keep that up.
I think it also has to do with, like which matchups are going to be a big problem. So like our weakness right now is the running game against really good defensive lines. And Penn State and Nebraska had good defensive lines. Now they have, the second best defensive end in the country on Purdue, but in general, their run defense still isn't that good. So, the bigger question is going to be, is our offensive tackles going to be able to hold up against him in pass protection, which they've been great at that all year. But our run blocking's had issues, and Wisconsin ran all over them, and even Michigan State, they lost, but Walker still had a lot of yards. So I'm assuming we're still going to do fine running, and if we can run the ball, then we'll be able to score in the red zone, and that's only really been our issue the last 2 weeks is red zone. So if you can run the red zone, you're going to score.
Yeah, true. And Walker didn't have 5 touchdowns and 200 yards against Purdue. Like Michigan State was coming off the
That's
Michigan
because
game.
they were down so much they had to pass more than they wanted to.
Yeah, but and Michigan State was down. They couldn't keep their emotions coming and going for that game. So Purdue caught them at the perfect time. They really did.
Yep.
So I see why Vegas is saying, all right, there's going to be some normalization coming on where the Buckeyes are like, all right, we've won 2 games now, each by 9 points because of our kicker. And I think there's going to be a big emphasis on the run game. I think that Travion Henderson is probably going to have a big game. Of course, my predictions, if I go back on this channel and my predictions, I'm probably 50%, but I feel like that's probably going to happen.
No, I agree with you. I think that's going to happen too.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
So what about Michigan and Penn State? What is your
We already talked
prediction on
about
that?
them. Oh, my prediction.
Yeah.
This is the question. Like I try to do it in 2 ways. Like there's the emotional me, and then there's the me that would be not a fan and betting money on the game. And so my prediction is,
so Michigan favored by 1.5. You gonna take that spread, or are you gonna take Penn State?
It's going to be 3 points or 4 points. That's going to be the win by whoever wins. But I'm going to take Penn State. Penn State, they're not going to get to the 30s. Penn State's going to score 28 points. Michigan will score 24. I think that's what it is. 28, 24.
That's a lot of points from Penn State.
I think, man, Dotson, that guy.
You have no faith in your secondary? In your
not a lot. Rush? No, we lost one of our corners, and they're not super great. I mean, even the pass rush can't get to him on every single play. So all they have to do is get Dotson out there, and maybe our pass rushers aren't great on that one play. Just has to happen a few times. That's it. And Michigan has been susceptible on the road, and they make weird mistakes. I do think that we're going to see another big passing game from Cade, like we did with Michigan State, because I don't think we're going to be able to run very well on them. I think he's going to have another big passing game. I'm not sure if it's going to be as good.
Their pass defense is actually really good, though. You think that he's only been able to pass once, and that was against the worst secondary in the country, in Michigan State. I mean, Purdue threw like 550 on them.
He's really good at the short and intermediate, like super accurate on those. Not so much always on the deep ball, but I mean, he's getting better, but he's really good at that. I think that they might do something similar to what Maryland did and move between the 20s, but it's the red zone. It's really the red zone that it's going to come down to for Michigan. And if you go back in time and look at the losses Michigan has taken to good teams, a lot of times Michigan's been up in those games, but then in the fourth quarter, they go punt, field goal, punt. That's kind of what their offensive series look like. It's like, I don't know if Harbaugh starts getting conservative, says, hey, I've got a lead, in the NFL, what you do when you have a lead is you become conservative and
kick field goals.
And you kick field goals. And it's been 7 years, and he hasn't figured out that in college football, these kids aren't professionals, and they'll blow a lead in the fourth quarter. You got to keep scoring touchdowns. So, yeah, I don't have any faith that Harbaugh is going to change his mind. It happened against Penn. It just happened against Michigan State. That exact same situation in the fourth quarter. So I think it's probably going to happen against Penn State too.
So
I hope
I have
not.
one other thing. So 3 things I wanted to say. So first was about this game. You had me a little worried about my prediction now because I didn't know you guys were down someone in your secondary. If you don't feel like your secondary is doing well, then going up against Dotson, and if Clifford is actually healthy, that could be a really tough offense to deal with.
Oh, are you changing your prediction? What's your score prediction?
No, I still just don't have faith in their offensive line against her, and that's the reason why I don't think that they're going to score enough. But I just wanted to say that I was a little worried about that. But the other thing I wanted to say was tomorrow's going to be a really fun game so we have the big Michigan Penn State game at noon, then Ohio State lines up right after that at 3:30. But is there a good night game? Is there anything you're looking forward to at night, that matters nationally?
Let me look at the schedule here really quick, because I think the only other
Notre
game,
Dame Virginia game will be fun. That'll be like a big point spread, but I don't think
yeah,
it really matters.
I kind of hope that
Oregon's the only other game that's of national significance, and that's not until 10:30. Seems like there's nothing good like in that 7 o'clock slot. A&M and Ole Miss, that doesn't matter.
Nope.
Yeah, unfortunately, in the evening, it doesn't look like there's anything that's going to be worthwhile. So
I would love to watch the Baylor game.
Iowa game. Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah.
3.
That's going to be a terrible game.
That's going to be the worst game of the season.
Oklahoma Baylor.
No points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oklahoma Baylor. I was kind of wanting. That's at noon, and so I'm not going to watch that because I'll be watching the Michigan game. But
I guess I'll be flipping back and forth on that one.
Yeah, you can be flipping, but I can't do that when I'm watching Michigan.
Oh yeah.
There's no flipping.
Yeah, neither can I.
But yeah, I don't think you're right. I don't think there's anything in the night game, so I'm going to have to figure out something to do tomorrow night. Actually, I'll still watch football. It's still football. We only have 2 weeks after this.
Oh well, we didn't talk about Alabama's game this week.
Oh, who are they even playing? Do we care?
51.5 point favorites against New Mexico State. How do you think that one's going to go?
They're playing New Mexico State at this point in the season.
You're joking. The SEC always does it. They always schedule these like the last couple of games of the year before their
You're right.
Game. They always play those really easy, terrible teams.
And it's a big noon kickoff too. Wow. Yeah. That's so depressing.
Well, it's also ridiculous that all these articles I'm reading about after Ohio State did struggle with Nebraska and other teams struggled, they were ranked high, so we're having questions about them legitimately. But Alabama struggled even more against LSU, who's 5-4.
Mm-hmm.
That game was ridiculous, and they didn't seem to get any flack for that game. That was a miracle that they pulled that one out.
Nope. Got to keep those teams ranked high that you want to end up in the top 4. If you want to plan that out. All right. I think that's it. I think we're wrapping it up. Please like and subscribe if you like this channel. I think we're out. We'll talk to you next time.
All right. Later. Go Bucks.
Go Blue.